All right, so the book we're reading is North Star, Saint Herman of Alaska. Do you all know where Alaska is? Thumbs up if you do. Some of you, maybe we'll look at a map later. It's on the top left-hand corner of the United States. So can you see? On a wintry night, I walk through the snow-carpeted forest of my home on Spruce Island. I feel the silvery moon peer over my shoulder when I look to the North Star. The North Star is always just above me because I live in Alaska. With wonder and admiration, I remember. For me and for all my Aleut brothers and sisters, Father Herman is our North Star. He lights up the sky with his golden rays of goodness. He makes sure we follow our true path. He is a man we call Appa, which in our language means grandfather. Can you guys see the North Star right there? And then that's the Big Dipper. How many of you see the Big Dipper at night sometimes? Thumbs up? Right. Let me tell you of how I first met Appa. One day, many years ago, I stood at the edge of the forest on my island. I looked out at a mighty sea and saw a small boat coming through the midst. The deep blue rolling waves tossed it about, up and down, up and down, up and down. The boat carried one single man, a man I did not yet know. He was a man from Russia, a land that lies far across a vast ocean from Alaska. At first, he came with 9 of his friends and settled on Kodiak Island, which is just a few miles from my own island. There, he and his friends built wooden homes. They became friends with the natives of Kodiak and began to teach them about God. It was terribly sad that most of these men drowned in a shipwreck. After a time, only this one man remained. You see Father Herman right there? There's the little guy telling the story. He first came across a dangerous northern ocean to our craggy, mountainous seashore. He came to this quiet wilderness to live on Spruce Island. He made him a simple home in the middle of the emerald forest. Here among the towering spruce trees, he prayed to Jesus. He sent his prayers straight up to heaven. Looks kind of like our North Shore, north. Appa was a small but very strong man. I watched as he cleared the rugged land by himself. One time I saw him carrying a heavy log, a log as big as a canoe, a log that would be so heavy for 3 men or even 4 men to carry. But Father Herman lifted that log all by himself. And he did it barefoot. Why in the cold snow? Oh my gosh. Why was he so strong? The secret, Appa said, was that God's spirit inside of him made him very, very strong. For a house, Father Herman dug himself a hut called a bara. It was a space carved into the ground and covered with sod. My own native people had lived in these kinds of houses for hundreds of years. But Appa was not like my people in many ways. He had a flat stone for a bed. He had 2 rocks covered with animal skins for pillows. He ate very little food. He spent his days working and praying. Everyone from miles around could recognize him. He was a man with the long flowing hair and bushy beard that turned whiter with each passing year. He wore a large deerskin tunic. Over time, this leather tunic became so worn that it glistened and shone like the sun. On the outside, he wore a long black robe that was patched in many places. His skin was lighter than mine, and his language different than mine. But when I first met him, his pleasant smile and bluish gray sparkling eyes made me feel like I was already his friend. You see his little hut? The bara. Little animal. Even though Father Herman didn't eat much himself, he knew how to cook and how to grow and prepare food so that there was enough for my people to eat. He boiled the salt out of the ocean water and used it to preserve our food for the winter season. He gathered huge baskets of seaweed and showed us Aleuts how to fertilize our garden. Because the sun doesn't set in Alaska during the summer months, our vegetables and fruits grow to enormous sizes. Cabbages usually look like small boulders, but with Apple's help, it seemed they grew as big as the night sun. You see those huge cabbages? Big, a lot bigger than ours here in the Midwest. Ooh. Spruce Island is full of creatures of every size and shape. Apple loved them all. The playful sea otters frolicked on the seashore when he came near. The shy fox would creep out from his den to sneak a peek at him as he tended his garden. Once I saw a ferocious Kodiak bear approach Father Herman. Instead of being afraid, Appa walked right over to the hungry bear and fed him a fish for supper. Standing on his hind legs, that bear was twice as tall as my friends. But the bear ate the fish right out of his hand, as if they too were lifelong friends. Big bear. It's a little fish. Father Herman especially loved children, and there were many little children in my village. He baked lots of cookies and biscuits called kadoki for us. We gathered close around him. With the sparkling eyes and sweet voice, he told us stories of faraway places. He told us how God loved us, and he told us we should love God. From this day, from this hour, from this very minute, we should love God above all and fulfill his holy will. He built a school for us and taught us songs and prayers. As we sang, the spruce trees around us swayed gently to the sound of our soft voices. See the little cabin in the background? It might be a church, actually. There's a cross on top. Yum. Father Herman was our protector. Other men from across the ocean had come to Alaska to hunt and trap wild animals and sell their fur. They called themselves traders. Some were kind, like Appa. They became part of our families. But some were cruel. They came to take gold from the earth. They wasted the land and its natural resources. They almost destroyed the largest herd of seals in the world. They made us work for little or no money. Appa often met with the leaders of our traders, begged them to treat our people kindly. He told them our Creator granted the native Aleut people this homeland. He wrote letters to governors and church leaders asking them to stop the harmful traders from hurting our country and us. Appa was our hero. Winters in Alaska are very harsh and cold and dark. This is a season when the sun hides itself for most of the day. Everything becomes silent under the blanket of snow. One winter was unusually harsh. Many of my people became terribly sick. We had no doctor and no medicine. My little sister became sick, and I expected the worst to happen. Then Appa came to her with his soothing smile. He cared for her and others. He brought food and warm blankets to our home. He comforted us with his warm spirit as he told stories by our bedsides. For a whole month, he cared for the village folk, never tiring and always praying. He stayed with us until the sickness passed. My sister became well again. How could I ever repay my dear Father Herman? I had no money or anything of value to give him. Then, you guys see who that is? That's Jesus, and then there's Father Herman, and then nice little bit. We'll learn more about that in a little bit, or I guess right now. I saw Father Herman standing alone under the star-filled winter sky. He stood watching the northern lights as bright as a rainbow. Ribbons of yellow, pink, and green filled the sky. I walked over to him and I set my hand in his. Appa, I made this for you. Thank you for saving my sister. Without you, we would have suffered from the cold and starved, and the sickness would have taken us away. He looked down at the small wooden whale I had carved from a piece of island driftwood. He closed his fingers around my gift and held it to his heart. Thank you, he said to me. Then we both turned to gaze into the bright sky, feeling its warmth and beauty. Father Herman quietly began to sing one of our church hymns, O joyous light of the holy glory. He knew God was listening, and so did I. You see the beautiful colors of the sky? the Northern Lights. Once a frightening fire raged through the forest on Spruce Island. It threatened to destroy my village. Quickly, Father Herman dug a ditch about 3 feet wide next to a thicket in the forest. We worked together and turned over moss all the way to the bottom of the hill near the village. Completely exhausted, Appa turned to me and said, "Rest assured, this fire will not pass this line." The next day looked very grim. Billowing clouds filled the sky with black smoke, and gusting winds pushed the blazing fire toward us. My eyes stung from the smoke. I was so afraid. I couldn't even move. Then when the fire reached the place where we had overturned the earth, it suddenly halted. The thick forest beyond remained untouched. My village was safe. You see that? Right there. Father Herman saved our village another time, an even scarier time. A powerful tidal wave came from the deep ocean and shook Spruce Island. The mighty sea roared loudly, and great great crashing waves raced to my shore. My people ran in all directions, trying to escape the storm. They fled to higher ground, but I ran to Appa. Quickly, Father Herman took an icon of the Virgin Mary and ran to the shore. He placed the icon firmly in the sand and began to pray. He calmly turned to me and said, "Have no fear. The water will go no higher than where this holy icon stands." But the waters still rolled thunderously. We were all terrified. As the waves came closer and were about to crash into the shore, they suddenly stopped in midair. They became calm and lapped on to the sand where the icon stood. Our fear turned to amazement. We smiled at the wondrous miracle. We fell to our knees and wept in relief. We thanked God and our dear Father Herman. Thanks to Appa's prayers, our homes were safe again. Father Herman planting the Panaya or Virgin Mary right in the sand. Campfire. In the evenings, by the firelight, we gathered around Father Herman. We told each other stories about our ancestors, our grandmothers and grandfathers, and great grandmothers and great grandfathers. He told us about God's love, about heaven, about eternity, and about the saint heroes that we all love to hear about. We talked and listened well past midnight into the early morning hours. I once asked Appa, "How do you manage to live alone in the forest?" "Don't you ever get lonesome?" he answered, smiling. "But I am not alone. God is there, as he is everywhere. Holy angels are there, with whom it is better and more pleasant to talk, with men or with angels." Of course, with angels. I curled up under my mother's blanket. I pretended I was under an angel's wing and drifted off into sleep. Year after year, as I grew up, I understood more and more about Father Herman. I knew him as a friend, as my ever-shining North Star, my guide. He brought the message of God's love to my village. He filled our hearts with love. He listened to us and protected us, the Aleuts of Spruce Island, the Aleuts of this great land called America. One evening, we saw an unusual pillar of light flowing upward from our island into the night sky. Never before had we seen such an amazing sight. It was as if a huge, bright candle stretched its warm flame up to heaven. One of our wise old men said, "Father Herman has left us," and he began to pray. A warm feeling came over us all. Through the darkness, we gazed at the brilliant light filling the world, and the words of Appa came back to my ears. From this day, from this hour, from this very minute, we should love God above all and fulfill his holy will. Said that bright light going up. There's a little puppy. The North Star is always above me because I live in Alaska. Father Herman is our North Star, forever guiding us in God's way.